Well, our Middle East correspondent Eric Torek is in Beirut and he joins us now live. Hi there, Eric. Now, if we can just start on what the IDF says, that they've been targeting Hezbollah infrastructure and weapons facilities. What kind of impact is this having on the group?
Probably a significant one. It continues the heavy losses that Hezbollah has suffered over the last 2 weeks, Catherine. We've definitely seen daily airstrikes on the southern suburbs of Beirut and some in other parts of the city. Some of the strikes, particularly the other night, Saturday evening and the early hours of Sunday morning, were massive explosions. One in particular, the IDF claimed was a weapons production facility. And it's true, we don't know exactly what was there, but we could see a lot of secondary explosions continuing for some time from that location. Huge explosions just ongoing for about an hour. And then over the course of the next couple of days, more strikes in the southern suburbs of Beirut, and the IDF claiming to have targeted Hezbollah's intelligence headquarters. Sometimes the strikes are very localised and presumably fired from drones, and other times they're quite large, and you can see a whole building or such has been destroyed. So it's clear that the Hezbollah is unable to move around, is unable to meet, and that the IDF is targeting its facilities within Dahieh. The problem, of course, is that Dahieh has been rebuilt after the 2006 war with Israel and has many apartment buildings. It's an area of apartment towers, residential towers. Israel claims that most of the Hezbollah facilities are built underneath those towers, which means the civilian impact of this bombardment is enormous.
Now, the city is just waking up. It's just gone past 9 o'clock, local time, Beirut. What is the feeling where you are?
Just exhaustion. There's so many people displaced from the southern suburbs. They're sheltering and sleeping rough all around the city. You can see them in all the public areas, particularly in West Beirut, around the Corniche, on the coast there. Anywhere there's public space, you'll see families, mattresses, makeshift shelters, people sleeping in their cars. And that's also on top of the hundreds of thousands of people who fled the Israeli bombardment and ground invasion in southern Lebanon. They've been here for about 2 weeks now. Also people who've come from the Bekaa Valley and cities like Baalbek, where Israel's been bombing. And most of those are, families and kids who are the ones who are sleeping in schools and mosques and any other makeshift shelters, including even nightclubs. They have opened up for the displaced people. More than 1.2 million people, according to the Lebanese government, have been displaced. There's about 6 million people in Lebanon, so you can appreciate just how big a proportion of the country's population that is.
And how is the city preparing for the days ahead?
Lebanon does not have a particularly functional government. It's had an economic collapse, so the state is largely absent. A lot of the people are being supported through the charity of private organisations, religious organisations, schools. There's not a lot the government can do. It's relying on aid agencies, multilateral efforts and funding. It doesn't have the resources to do very much. And it would argue perhaps that it's already done what it can do. The health system, the Lebanese government says the health system has been overwhelmed, particularly as this occurred after the attack on the Hezbollah pages and walkie-talkies, which injured thousands. So the trauma treatment capacity was already overwhelmed in that instance. Then you have the bombardment ongoing, and Lebanese doctors have said that they're seeing far too many trauma injuries. They've run out of supplies. They don't have the beds to treat all the people who have sustained trauma from bombardments. So it's an incredibly difficult situation. The health system is absolutely struggling, and there's not a lot more the Lebanese state can do to deal with the ongoing impacts of this.
Okay, if I can take you down to the border, what do you know of the reports of an IDF soldier being killed near the border?
Yeah, we don't know a great deal of detail about what's happening. We know what the two sides put out. Israel says its forces are continuing to operate in villages close to the border. They've crossed into Lebanon, but we don't know how long they're staying for. We know that they say they are dismantling Hezbollah firing positions, weapons caches, launching areas for rockets. They say that they're engaging directly with usually the Radwan force, which is Hezbollah's kind of special forces unit, its main combat force. And the Israeli military says it's killed 440 Hezbollah fighters over the past few days since their invasion began. And Hezbollah, for its part, is claiming to have inflicted far fewer casualties on the Israelis. They say they've killed, as of yesterday, 25 Israeli soldiers, but as you mentioned, Israel's only confirmed one further death, which brings their confirmed death toll in Lebanon to 10.
And one of the large strategies that Israel has to keep its people safe is obviously the Iron Dome system, but Israel's air defence system has not been able to intercept all of Hezbollah's missiles.
No, yesterday the Israeli military said over the course of yesterday that 130 Hezbollah rockets were fired from southern Lebanon, and as you mentioned, some of them got through the Iron Dome. The Iron Dome is a short-range rocket defence interceptor system. It relies on batteries in particular areas that have a limited capacity. And it makes a judgment based upon where it tracks the trajectory of the rocket, works out if it's going to land in an open area, and only in the instances where it's going to land on a populated area does the Iron Dome fire an interceptor missile to take down that rocket. So it's efficient in as much as it can make judgments based on where the rockets are heading, but that doesn't mean it can deal with a large rocket barrage. And what Hezbollah has been doing is firing barrages of, say, perhaps 30 rockets at a time. Now, the Iron Dome, depending on how many batteries are there, it can't deal with a large barrage all at once. So it's inevitable that some rockets are going to get through. But actually what's been happening in northern Israel is most of the rockets have been falling on open areas or they're being intercepted. When you're seeing impacts like this, it's because either Hezbollah has fired a large barrage or perhaps there's been misidentifications or things like that. But the worst case scenario for Israelis has not yet happened, which is that Hezbollah fires enormous salvos all at once and mixes in its medium and longer range capability. It hasn't used that very much to date. So as you know, and even in 2006, there were far greater number of missiles and rockets falling on Israeli cities in the north. The great fear of the Israeli military planners was that they would see a large-scale barrage upon Israeli population centres, but to date, Hezbollah hasn't used that capacity.